Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to LWP. So, tonight is so exciting. I do not even know where to begin tonight. So, you all know who it is. There is absolutely no point in me banging on. You've all seen the advertisement that's gone out. But let's just quickly brief cap. Don't even know what I'm on about tonight. Let's just quickly go over in brief. So, Carsten is a German TV and radio host. He is also a professional wrestling commentator who was and a ring announcer for that matter, and is best known for his time on WWE or WF back in the day. So let's bring him in.
Hello, Gemma.
Hello, my darling.
How
How
are
are
you?
you?
I'm good.
I'm good. How are
sitting
you?
here. Yeah, I'm good. I'm sitting here looking at you and waiting with bated breath for what's to come.
So, well, I just feel the need to actually touch on your vinyl collection behind you because that is impressive.
That is just a small part. That's my biggest vice. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I just buy records. Well, not as many as I used to, but this is a collection which came into existence, started in 1971. So I've had time to collect.
Just that bit behind you looks massive.
Yeah, that's part of the old collection that I've had from day one, but the whole room is full because I'm just a music nerd. I play music, I listen to music, I read about music. That's basically it for me.
Well, we was talking about this before we went before we went live. So you do still actually host your own radio show as well, don't you? 5 nights a
Yeah,
week or 5 days a week?
that's right. Yeah, that's right. I host radio shows for four online stations and one FM station. Rock, metal, progressive rock, folk rock, whatever. As long as it's not reggae, I'm good.
Do you not fancy a bit of Bob Marley?
I hate Bob Marley. I like dub reggae, like Prince Farai and stuff like that. But Bob Marley, I know he was important lyrically, but then I don't like Bob Dylan either. I know he was important lyrically, but no.
You just don't want to be the same as everybody else, do you?
It's not really that. Had I liked their music, I would have listened to it. It's just it didn't do anything for me. I'm a hard rock guy. Deep Purple will forever be the greatest hard rock band in the world. Even if the world exists for another 10 million years, nobody will ever be better than Deep Purple as a hard rock
Well,
band.
see, this is it. You like what you like, right? So
Yep,
let's go back to the very, very, very early days. So you was born in Germany,
yep,
spent a year here in the UK in Milton Keynes,
that's right.
and that was what was that doing?
What that was doing was I studied in my hometown English, German, French to become a teacher. I didn't want that. My mother had actually enrolled me at university. She was a bit like that, and so
It's a mother thing.
after yeah, after 2 terms, there was a program whereby I could either go to an American university for a year, but America was so far away. It was as far away as Mars at the time, or go to an English university for 1 term. But I didn't want that because I thought it was too pre-planned. So I wanted to go to a school, work as an assistant teacher for a year. So they sent me to Leon Comprehensive. They are now a different kind of school in Bletchley, Milton Keynes. And I went there in September of 81 and came back in, I think, August of 82. And that is where I watched wrestling for the very first time.
That's what we was getting on to. How did that come about? How did watching wrestling and falling in love come about?
Easy. I'm a TV nut. So obviously, when I was in England, I wanted to watch TV. And I think at the time you had 4 programs. We only had 3. So I did a little bit of channel surfing, well, as far as you could surf. And then all of a sudden, because I didn't know wrestling, I mean, wrestling kind of existed, but you had to live in or near a place where there was wrestling, or you had to know somebody, and I never knew anybody. So there was a ring, and I was like, oh, this is a boxing match. I remember that was World of Sports in '81. And from the left, I remember it as if it had happened yesterday. From the left came a grizzly man, uh, long hair, long beard, a fur coat. Somebody was prancing around him, accompanying. He looked grim and beastly, and the audience booed him like mad, so he went into the ring. Then from the right comes a slightly balding, slightly roundish, slightly oldish man with a short spandex suit, and everybody erupted. And I was privy to one of the greatest rivalries, I think, one of the greatest feuds in English wrestling history, and that was Giant Haystacks versus Big Daddy. That's who they were. And I watched it religiously every Saturday until I left. And then that was it.
So how did it, you fell in love with it here. So what then happened when you went back to Germany?
Nothing. I basically I went to, while in England, I decided I was not going to do this anymore. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and that was become a translator and interpreter. So I wrote a letter to my mum, phoning, no way, too expensive. So I wrote a letter and I said, look around for a language school. And she found one in Munich. And I came back and just did my stuff. Wrestling was no more. And then when I graduated in late 1986 and started working, odd jobs. I was a freelancer all my life, always self-employed. And so one day, a former co-student asked me, would you like to translate for television? And I was like, yeah, sure. You have to earn your money somehow. So I did. That was sometime in 1987. And then coincidences led to me actually speaking. Somebody said once, you have to speak a short report. And I was like, listen, I'm a translator, not a speaker. You have to. And so I did, and switched stations. And then in 1989, I have mentioned this quite a few times, so I have to do this again. The head of the then sports department at a German station called Tele 5, he said, we've got this catch can stuff. Who wants to do this? And everybody looked, and they were like serious sports fans, like football, American football, and what have you. And they turned away and said, well, what a load of crap is that? They didn't know wrestling, but it looked awful to them. And I was reminded of my time in England. I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And everybody looked at me like I was totally around the bend. And they said, we need a show next week. And I was like, oh, bloody hell. So they gave me the 10, 15 tapes that they had, a tape machine, pair of headphones, put me in a corridor. There was no room. And I looked at these tapes. It was WWF, of course. And so I basically just tried to get into the groove of things, and then compiled a show, and wrestling became super successful from day one. And over the almost 4 years that I did it at the first station, it was the second highest rated program over that 4-year period, trailing only, I think, something like America's Funniest Home Videos or whatever, And that's how I got into that. Yeah, it was a show I could do myself. That was nice.
That is awesome. Like, to be fair, like you got into it. You truly 100% got into the wrestling, the commentating. When did the ring announcement come into it?
Well, I have to say, when you say I got into it in England even before they laid hands on each other. They just walked to the ring, and there was something about it, about the show and all that stuff, that I just totally fell in love with. And then of course I would.
It's an experience.
Then later on, yeah, absolutely. And then I would later see them on kids programs like Tiswas and what have you. the ring announcing came in. We had our first televised live show in April of 1992 from the Olympiahalle in Munich, which was sold out and still holds a venue record of 12,500 people. There you go. And so we did that live. And the ring announcing came, I think, in 93. Um, I think it was, I'm not quite sure about this, but I think it was in Offenbach, which is near Frankfurt. And we had an open air show. And all of a sudden, one of the ring announcers had to go back to the US, which happened fairly frequently, because they had like all sorts of jobs. The ring announcers did all sorts of things. And they said, and then Hulk Hogan, Jimmy Hart, and the head of the department came to me and said, "Oh, we need a ring announcer." And I'm like, "Yeah, so yeah, you have to do it." "No, I can't do it, and they said, and they said, "Well, do you have a suit on you?" And I hate suits. "No, don't," and I don't even know whether I did it or not. Believe it or not, I can't even remember. But that around about that time it started. So I traveled around with them until about 1999 for every tour. And they, apart from England, they were in England all the time. And then they were in Germany all the time, up to about 100 days a year. So basically, I was doing that all the time, which was quite lovely.
So I take it you got to travel a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And how was that, life on the road?
Um, I hated it because I can understand how people say after a while, I don't know where I'm at. I even forgot. Now I would just be with them for like a week at a time, traveling on the face bus, playing cards with Macho Man Randy Savage all the time. And it was great, but no, it was brilliant because you got to know people, but you always had to be a little wary because I was office, and so I wasn't part of the group of wrestlers
Hmm.
and road agents and stuff who knew each other. So I couldn't be as cheeky as they were. You know, I once was, but with another referee, didn't get me in trouble, but I understood that then. And so, but everybody was like really nice, and of course I got ribbed. Pranks played on me all the time, particularly by Owen Hart and Earl Hebner. I think they were the ones in particular, and the Smoking Guns. Um,
Okay,
you know,
so I've got to ask, I can't not. What sort of pranks did they play on you?
oh well, Owen Hart, just a few things. He was sitting on the bus. I was sitting in front of him, and all of a sudden he sneezed, and I had like something wet in my neck, and it was quite appalling. And then eventually I turned round, and there was basically a beer cooler, and he basically just, when he sneezed, he could just splash water on me. What pranks? I think the first one that was played on me was also in Munich. Actually, there were quite a few happening in Munich, funnily enough, where I lived at the time. And uh, there was a match, Hulk Hogan versus Yokozuna. And so Hulk Hogan hits Yokozuna. Yoko tumbles out of the ring towards me. And that was one of my first jobs as ring announcer. So I was sitting there, like, I don't know, 10 feet or more, no more, 20 feet away from him. And he looks around, and I'm like, yeah, he sees me. So he's going to stop. Right. Of course he did not. And he sat on me, all, 500 pounds of him. And the chair which was a steel chair, was as flat as a stamp, you know, and stuff, and things like that. Now, remember, the next night we were in Berlin, and nothing happened during the show. And after the show, we all went to the Hard Rock in Berlin, and I was just about to go into the dining area when I saw to the right, I saw Yoko sitting there, and he looked at everybody, hi, and then he saw me, looked at me, and then waved me over and he said, "Did I hurt you last night?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, everything okay." And he said, "Well, I'm glad, nothing happened and stuff." So we got into talking and became fast friends, as I did with the Samoans. I tell you what, the Samoans are the greatest people that you are ever likely to find. I mean, I got to know the head shrinkers first, Samu and Fatu, Rikishi, Yoko, the girls, everybody. They were just so fantastic. I can't even begin to tell you how wonderful the Samoans are. Um, and the New Day lately, also one of the greatest, some of the greatest people you're ever likely to meet. So yeah, and so Yoko was there. There were things with Adam Bomb, for example. Remember, if you remember him, Adam Bomb with his atom bomb gimmick, and we got on like a house on fire. And he was in the ring, and he would look at me, and of course I had to be, because he was the heel, I had to be serious and stuff. So he would look at me and he would be saying, "Ah, you're the worst ring announcer ever," and then he would tell jokes, and you had to stay serious. But the one of the worst situations was Jeff Jarrett. Um, you know, uh, uh, Jeff Jarrett, JEWF, and so on and so forth. And he, first night, so he would insult the audience. I would be with him in the ring, doing the ring announcing. He would take the mic and he would then insult the audience. And I was supposed to translate it, which I did. Next night, he leaves the mic to me and he says, "Well, you know what I'm going to say." And then he tells jokes, and I'm supposed not to crack up, and they were really funny jokes. It was things like these. One serious incident, at least that's what I thought, but mostly harmless and really wonderful. Everybody was like super nice.
See, this is the thing, right? So when you're watching wrestling, you first, for you, it was slightly different because you was in there, you was in the thick of it. But for all the fans at home, especially the big names that you've just mentioned, so everybody fell in love with the character, the
Yeah,
wrestler, not the actual person. And that's what the difference is, right? Because I know LWP, the guys, when they come out the ring, the guys that are at the show see the wrestlers. I'm backstage, I get to see the people. And the difference is phenomenal sometimes, isn't it? Like you say, they'll come out, there'll be abuse everywhere, you'll get loads of rubbish thrown at you because you're the person that's there. I do the interview, so I get it all at me. Um, but then the minute the cameras stop rolling or the minute the show's done, it's like they're completely different people, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, obviously, there has to be a certain amount of trust. Like whenever I met them in the early days, I would always go to them and say, "Hello, I'm Carsten. I'm the German commentator. I'm going to be the ring announcer." I wanted them to feel comfortable,
Yeah.
so that they didn't think, this bloke is a hanger on or whatever, but that they knew I was actually involved job wise with WWE. I have to tell you one thing though. Um, how I met Paul Bearer. That was the worst ever. I tell you, I had met the Undertaker first, so I said, "Hello, I'm Carsten." Yeah, good to see you. And then I go to Paul, and I'm like, "Hello, I'm Carsten, doing my thing," and he doesn't look at me. He doesn't even talk to me. He just pretends like I'm not there. And I always felt guilty when something like this happened. I always thought I'd made a mistake, and I wanted to do it right. I tried again a bit later on. He wouldn't talk to me on the whole tour. He talked to Virgil, play cards with Virgil and stuff. Next tour, he comes again. And I go to him with a lot of trepidation and say to him, "Hello, oh, hey, Carsten, good to see you." And I'm like, "You didn't talk to me at all last time. Why?" And and he said, "Well, I check out people's gimmicks and then I decide whether I like them or not." And he made up his mind he liked me, and from then on, we were like brothers. And he got me out of two really, really sticky situations, you know.
But now you know I'm going to want to know what those sticky situations are, right?
Well, one was with Alundra Blaze. I travel on the bus, as I said. I went to the loo and stuff. And then I think it was in Dortmund, Germany. Um, he comes to me and says, Carsten, let me have a look at your bag. And I'm like, what's going on, you know? And he's like, well, Alundra obviously got cigars from the road agent then, and he loves these because they are Cuban and they are banned in the US, you know, but not in Germany. And if he finds out and they're in your bag, you're in deep trouble. Give them to me, you know, because she played this trick on me, which would have ended really badly. And so I gave them to him, and obviously something happened that where he turned the tables on her. And so I was out of the rough, and she was really in the, you know what.
In the
And
thick of
the
it.
other thing, in the thick of it, yes, I would have said it in just one word, but hey. Um, and the other thing was, yeah, with Randy Savage. Now, Randy was a really nice guy. I can't say anything bad about him, but everybody warned me that at the flick of the wrist, he could just turn into a completely different being. And I remember one tag team match. It was him and I think Shawn Michaels versus the British Bulldog and Owen Hart. I think it was that, and they were the faces, and of course, it was then the Hart Foundation thing, the new Hart Foundation thing. They were the heels, and that was one of the greatest tag team matches I'd ever seen. It was just totally wonderful, you know. It was such a flow and such entertainment and such great moves. It was so well balanced. I was just totally in awe. And then I was on the bus. I saw Bret Hart sitting there again. So we would talk music because he's a huge music nut. And then Owen came along and I said, hey, that match was so great. Do you think I can tell Randy that? Sure. Yeah, no problem. I told Randy that. I said exactly what I told you. And he's like, what are you doing? Calling me out on the floor? And I'm like, what? This was a wonderful match. And he really started throwing a tantrum. And I had no idea why. And that was Randy Macho Man Savage, please, you know. So obviously he just turned into this other being. So next day we're on a bus. Again, you go on the loo, and when you have an 8-hour ride, me particularly with my weak little bladder, inherited from my dad. And yeah, well, with women, everybody says, yeah, no problem. But with blokes, a different story. So anyway, I come back and that was the same show about what I told you just now. And I was just going to get dressed half an hour before the show, and my trousers were ripped completely, you know. And I there was a friend of mine who sold merchandise for WWE, and I said to her, "Can you get something to, you know, can you sew it up?" No, I don't have anything, you know. Well, can you find some safety pins or something? And she eventually found some safety pins, so I basically just stuck one pair of trousers together and went to the ring and, you know, did the show, and nobody did anything to me. And later on, Dave Hebner, who was the road agent at the time, you know, Dave and twin brothers,
Yeah.
um, he then said to me, he gave me money for the trousers, and he said, and was it him? Yeah, he said, you know, Carsten, they just wanted to test you, whether you'd come crying to me, somebody did something to me, or whether you'd actually stick it out. And so from then on, it turned into a good thing. And then Randy and I made up again and continued playing cards.
I mean, I don't know what I would do in that position.
You would do
If
the same thing.
I don't know if I would. I think I would be having a right flap, like, oh my lord, my backside's on show.
Well, what do you think I did? Of course, I totally panicked, and then but there's no use panicking because you've got 30 minutes till showtime and you don't have spare trousers because both pairs are ripped. So you've got to do something, And I was like, okay, what can I do? And safety
Safety
pins
pins.
was the thing that came to mind. So yeah,
I don't
safety
think
pins
I'd have
was.
thought about safety pins. I think I'd have just gone into a panic, to be fair. But you are quite cool, calm, and collected, though, aren't you?
No.
I
I
think
wasn't
you
in that
are.
situation. I'm always nervous. Whenever I went to the ring, I was nervous. But I think it depends on what you do. I mean, I have no problem speaking in front of 12 or 15 or more thousand people. Not at all. My brother, for example, who was an attorney, he would start to tremble and his hands would be like a Geiger counter, when he would talk in front of 10 people, even though he was like a really tough lawyer and stuff, but it just wasn't his thing. So for me, it's not a problem. Of course, I was nervous and I had my little cue cards and I learned them by heart. And then I went into the ring and stuff happened. Yeah.
I think nerves are good. I think sometimes
Yep.
nerves gives you that adrenaline, which forces you to just go do it.
Of course, you've got adrenaline is always good. I learned that when I played in bands in the 70s. I was as nervous as hell, but you can't be that nervous because otherwise you can't play the guitar. So you have to find a way to do something about it. And I did, and I think everybody, you would too. You'd panic 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then there's no more use in panicking. What can you do? I mean, you've out panicked yourself, and then
I've
it's time
started, so I'll
to
finish.
yeah, and then you've got to get to it and find a solution.
Oh no, I think you're a brave man. You're a very, very brave man. Going out there, like you say, 12, 13,000 people. It's not like you're going out to a small group, it's huge. And all those people are staring at you.
That's right. But
Did
then
you ever get it
again,
wrong?
um, did I have a? Well, I got one thing wrong once. Yeah, I tell you about being really nervous. I remember one tour. I think it was '96. The tour through Germany had finished, and then Tony Chimmel, one of my best mates, ring announcer and doing all sorts of things for WWE at the time, he had to go back to the US. And then somebody came along and said to me, Carsten, can you tag on one day in Birmingham? That was the one night only pay per view. And I said, yeah, sure. And I was like, oh, bloody hell, they can now understand what I'm saying, because in Germany, I knew what to say and they trusted me. And I never said anything that I shouldn't have said. But that there, I was so nervous, it's particularly the opening announcement. I was sitting there trembling, thinking, I hope I get it right, So yeah, what was the other thing? What was it you asked me? Oh, something that went wrong. Yes, it was in 1997 after a tour. We had it was the European Express tour, and the last show was in Berlin, and it was televised. And everybody came over. Vince McMahon came over. The Honky Tonk Man, co-announcer, Jerry Lawler, and everybody. So it was more or less the same lineup that we had on the tour for 6, 7 days or something. And Shane McMahon comes to me and says, okay, so you go in the ring, you just wait for my cue, and then you do the ring announcing. Yeah, sure, no problem. I'm here in the ring. He's out there. I felt comfortable. And he wouldn't say a thing. And first wrestler comes in and he doesn't say anything. And he's almost at ringside. And I'm like, he's got to say something to me. And then I didn't see him anymore. And I started announcing, stop. Whole show was stopped just because of me, just because I was getting uncertain. And Shane comes to me and I said, I told you to wait until I tell you to start the ring announcing. So everybody went back, we did it again. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. Well, no problem. Just don't let it happen again, which was the McMahon adage at the time. And so I didn't do it again. So that was one of my two grave mistakes. Another one was that I once forgot to hand in the tapes for a Friday episode of the show that we had back then in that must have been 91 or something. I was at the news, went round to the news department and put my tapes on the floor and forgot to take them, went home, and then somebody calls me and says, Carsten, where are the tapes? We don't have a show to air. Oh my God. And I couldn't go back. And I was sure they were going to let me go. But the editor-in-chief, I went to see him on the Monday after having a totally restless, sleepless weekend. And he said, well, Carsten, no problem. You've always done your job right. But just don't let it happen again. And it never did.
Don't let it happen again.
Exactly.
Oh, no. Did the show go out then? Or
yeah, sure. Yeah. I was the ring announcer and commentator. So I would do ring announcing and then jump out of the ring, sit at the commentator's table and do commentary. And then when the match was over, I grabbed the mic and I said, and your winner is, and still so-and-so champion, whatever, went back into the ring. Yeah. Good old days, 97.
There's being busy and then there's doing two people's jobs.
Yeah. Couldn't do it any other way because it was in Germany and there were no other ring announcers and stuff. So, I mean, come on, it's just 5 feet, from my table to the ring. So it's no problem. And the other commentator would just sit there and basically, talk about it. And yeah,
it would take me 20 minutes to get in the ring, to be fair. So I'd have to scramble up and it wouldn't be a pretty sight.
No.
Did you never fancy becoming a wrestler?
No, because I only discovered wrestling when I was 21. And
it's never too late.
It was for me ever since I was 12, because when I was 12, I tripped over a dog of a friend, tore my cruciate ligament, and they put on a cast for 3 or 4 weeks or something. They should have operated on it, and I still have it today. So I would never have done that. But there would never have been a chance to wrestle. I didn't know anywhere where you could wrestle, There are places in Germany, quite a few, but I never lived anywhere where there was any wrestling. So I wanted to become a football professional, of course, Sure.
Football?
That would have been nice. Yeah, football.
You think?
Sure. I would have been good enough, but I never wanted to play in a team or in a club. I was just a sort of street footballer, my brother and I, and that was good enough for me because I was brought up in a way by my mum, as you would be in the 60s and early 70s, that you have to get some sort of degree. And my mum once told me that when people asked me when I was little what I wanted to be, I said a football player or a professor. Didn't become either of them, but so sports. I'm German. We need it safe, and I'm a bit like that too. Yeah.
I mean, there's you've not exactly played it safe with your career, have you? Like you say,
listen, I never wanted to be on TV, and there are downsides. I mean, after like 95 or something, I got quite a few inklings of what bullying is and trying to get rid of people. I mean, WWE became super successful basically from day one. And then all of a sudden we switched stations umpteen times. I can't even remember how often, because in Germany, pro wrestling is still considered glorification of violence. So at the time, it could only air as of 9 p.m. Today, it's even 10 p.m. But this is
Oh,
Generation
really?
Z, and I'm glad I'm not Generation Z. I tell you. So you know what? I think you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to get myself into hot water by actually explaining what I mean, but uh, uh, no, it was it was awful when you always had to watch your back. And there was one situation where somebody, the then German head honcho of WCW, wanted to get rid of me, and Vince McMahon personally stepped in. So my boss in the US told me, because I've had the same boss for 31 years in WWE, which was nice, you know, and he told me that Vince McMahon actually canceled the contract because of a match that shouldn't have been that should have aired, and because of this guy trying to get rid of me. But things like these happened all the time. And now that I'm not doing WWE anymore, I realize how much time I've missed, because politically and socio-politically, I'm so far away from conservative, from Republican in the US, or Tory. I'm more like sort of middle left wing kind of guy, ecologist, climate friendly, pro vaccination, all these things happen over the past few years. And then being with WWE is just awful, because they're all Republicans, or most of them anyway. And that was like, I was thinking, what the hell have I got myself in for? I know you shouldn't say this. I know a lot of wrestling fans out there are going to say, oh, what's he doing now? Dishing dirt on WWE? No, but that was how I felt. Because I am that kind of guy. I grew
I mean,
up
ultimately,
in, yeah,
ultimately, everybody is entitled to their own opinions, and all you're doing is telling me and
yeah,
anybody else that's watching about your time in
yeah.
WWE, WWF. And it's not always going to be a barrel of laughs, is it? It's not always going to be a bed of roses. There is going to be trials and tribulations that come along any career and make it hard work. It's just the way life is, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't a problem really until a German office was set up in Munich, maybe, I don't know how many years ago, 8 years ago or something. And the guy had it out for some people, particularly me, wanted to get rid of me. And after a few years, he managed to do so. Um, and I can tell you, when he got in and really chased some people down, like myself and two or three others that he wanted to get rid of, I can tell you, I swear, for 2 years, I didn't have one good night's sleep. So now, I'm out since 2020. Um, and now I'm glad I am. But on the other hand, I'm also happy for the time that I had, particularly the early days. And when I go to wrestling shows now, indie shows, German indie shows and stuff, and I did commentary until recently, people would talk about these early days very much. And I tell you what, I could do commentary the way I wanted to. I could talk about like Aaron, for example. Aaron Sharp wrestled in Germany recently, and I was
Yes.
able to talk about him. I was able to talk about all the achievements that he had, and it didn't need to leave anything out, you know.
No.
And I could present him the way he was, and as the great wrestler that he is, and
I
the
mean,
great
don't be
guy.
telling him that though, because you'll make it bigger than it already is. So we don't tell him that.
Of course I will, and I will also tell him that you told me not to, so you get in hot water, not.
He's watching now, so is Sabrisa. They're already going to know that I've said it.
Hello, Aaron. How are you?
And also, just before we move on, I just want to pop to the chat. So we've got quite a few people. So Arcadius, Craig McIntosh, um, Brent Wilkinson. Oh, Marty Jones is in the chat room. They're all saying hello.
Hello, everybody. Nice of
Oh,
you to
isn't that
watch
nice?
and to listen. Yeah,
Little fan club going on there. Look.
I love it. I love it. We're all
So
people. You know what? The day we die, there's nothing. I'm not religious or anything, so we need to make the best out of our lives. And if
See,
there are
this is
people
it.
watching and listening, I love them for it. Hello, everybody. Love you.
So let's move on slightly. So, am I
Absolutely.
right in thinking
No,
that you've had a camo in a film?
that had what?
A camo. You was in a film. You was in a film.
Oh, that you mean? Yes, I had a cameo. That's true. It was the translation was 1.5 nights. That's correct. Yes. Oh, what are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah, the same one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think I briefly see some another one, but I don't think I think that was a little bit muddled. Is there only one that you've done?
yeah.
It didn't look like it was there. It was like it was meant to be there. To be fair,
Right.
and so your time in WWE, if you could do it all over again, would you?
I would do it until a moment in 1993, when I was asked the question um, by the then merchandising company for WWF, of course, at the time. I hope the World Wildlife Fund doesn't sue if I say that. Um, there's this great T-shirt. You know that T-shirt, don't you? With the panda bear and the one hitting the other one over the head with the chair.
Yeah.
Right. I've got that. So the thing is, I told you about the things that I didn't like, the things that really seriously broke me. Um, um, Politically and socio-politically, and that's always been very important to me. And the things that happened, the backstabbing and the television things and stuff, like in Germany, doctors usually call themselves demigods in white, or they are called that. Television people consider themselves gods in white, whether they're just some sort of secretary or whatever. Ooh, I'm working at a TV station. I'm really something special. No, you're bloody not. If you're an asshole, you're bloody not. And I've met so many of these people, and that I need to explain that for what I'm going to say now. In 1993, the merchandising company asked me and another commentator, would you like to work for WWE on a steady basis? They want to be sure that whenever they need two German guys, that they have them. And I said yes, because I mean, that up at that moment, it was more or less my only job. And I said, yeah, I will sign. And um, I wouldn't do that again. I would basically say, no, I'm not going to. I'm just going to be a translator and interpreter. And if you want to keep me all the same, lovely. If not, no. But not because I don't love wrestling, but because I do. But because of the things that I just talked about, they were just so horrendous, and I find it so awful what happens in TV, and you have this Me Too movement and stuff. This concerns women. Yes, I've seen that happen, but it also happens to other people. If you don't work for the TV station, and I was always under contract to WWE, um, then they really squash you. And when they realize that there's something that they deal with, like little scribblers and stuff, and they tell you how to do your bloody job. And I was like, listen, I couldn't even say, listen, you're not a commentator, I'm the commentator, I know what I'm doing, you know and they would tell you how to do it, and so on and so forth. I mean, I love people telling me what to do if I don't know what to do. But if I know what to do, then please shut up,
Yeah,
And
don't teach somebody to suck eggs, right?
right.
I
Yeah.
mean, the thing is, what a lot of people don't realize is people see TV and think that must be a glamorous lifestyle. It looks easy, right? It looks like anybody could do it. Truth is, it is not. You 9 times out of 10, you've got to sign NDAs. You've also then scripted on what you can and can't say. The list of, I mean, I've done live TV, and on that, the list of things that you are not allowed to mention in any single way, shape, or form is horrendous. I used to think I can't cope.
Um, I have to say one thing though, because a lot of people ask me that. They said, "Do they tell you, or did they tell you what to say?" And I said, "No, they never did. They trusted me."
But
So I was
but
in
you will have
because I
had. I'm
a
guessing you
bit
would have had things like you can't say this and you can't say that. Like
sure.
on the TV shows that I've done, it's like you can't mention money and things like that. There will have been things that you're not allowed to say.
Yes, the two things you couldn't talk about would be politics and religion. That came from Vince McMahon, but also things like they wanted to present themselves as kids friendly, so you couldn't say fight. You would have to say match. You couldn't say brutal, but you'd have to say, "Oh, what a hard match," stuff like that. Which is totally understandable. I have no problem, no qualms with that at all. You know, um, it's so nobody really told me you can't do that, and because I did it from day one, um, my boss basically said, "Okay, Carsten, you're in charge. When we got new commentators in, tell them how we do things, and so on and so forth." But a lot of these people developed rather huge egos, like I'm the commentator, and you have to treat me like this. And I don't really have an ego. I might be an idiot. Some people say that, but I don't have an ego. That's the one thing I don't have. And so job comes first. And I always said, I would love to get on with people um, at work. I mean, I worked from home mostly and would go into the studio to do voiceovers and stuff. But I then sort of found out very often that people would just want to be chummy chummy, and then they didn't do their job right. So I made a decision early on, and I said, well, if I have to choose between doing my job right and not getting on with people, and getting on with people but not doing my job right, I'll go for the first one,
Yeah.
because I have a contract with WWE, and it's my responsibility to fulfill that contract, and I will. And if people don't like me for it, and there are always a few writing on my Facebook page and stuff. I've just had this recently, um, and who describe. I never met them, but they describe me as a bully, and they describe me as being mean to people and stuff. No, I'm not. I just had a responsibility, and WWE expected of me to fulfill that, so I did.
Yeah, exactly. Realistically, it's not anybody else's business. Do you know what I mean? You signed a contract, you was under an obligation to do a job, and you 100% fulfilled your job role. So anything else is irrelevant.
Well, I stayed with the company for 31 years, so I must have done something right, you know. But it's not
Exactly.
really a question of did I do something right? Did I do something wrong? It was what it was, and that's it. I mean, no use crying over spilt milk. Um, I'm 63 now. One day I'm going to die, and I want to lead a fulfilled life until then, so I can't really bother with that sort of stuff.
So, like you said, you've lived a very fulfilled life this far. So now we're taking wrestling out of the equation.
Hmm.
The radio still continues.
Yep.
So what is it that you're doing with yourself now other than the radio? Are you still, because you're no longer involved in ring announcing or commentary anymore at all, are you?
No, I'm not. Actually, I've after I was told that I was too expensive, because for the last 4 years or 5 years or so, they flew me to every pay-per-view in the US. And I sat at ringside and worked with the two commentators, one guy from Austria, one guy from Hamburg, who had moved to the US. Um, because they were actors and wanted to get better and stuff. But of course, the German kind of suffers then when you live in the country almost half your life. So I worked with them, sat at ringside. So that was quite nice. Always had Brock Lesnar throwing stuff at me, and so um, so when that stopped, people got in touch with me about doing something for Euro Wrestling, and I did commentary, as I said before, and
Yeah.
it was just wonderful because, as I said, um, I wouldn't. sort of talk about dish the dirt or anything, I would do it just as I tried to do it, just as professionally as I had done before, but I was freer to talk about people. If something went wrong, I could talk about it, and you can
Yeah.
talk about it and then make something out of that. We're all human. you know. And so I did that for another 3 years until a week and a half ago when I decided, give it a rest now. You've done it. And the last 3 years have just been wonderful. Um, as I said, a lot of people talked about the old days, which brought back a lot of great memories and a lot of connection with the audience, and also with the German and European wrestlers and stuff. Um, and, like meeting Aaron, for example, it's just wonderful. And so I said, okay, that's it for me now. And so I still work for a TV station in Germany called Motorvision.tv, just plugging them. They do motorsports, and I do that. I started doing that a long time ago when I did Monster Jam for them, and they wanted Monster Jam done in a sort of wrestling kind of way. And I
Ah,
wouldn't. Yeah, and actually, they have 3 shows in Germany in July, and I'm going to be the stadium announcer, and I'm really looking forward to that one. Tell you. And
you like to put yourself out there, don't you?
uh, they asked me, how can I resist? I love
Well, this
it.
is true. This is
I
true.
love Monster Jam. It's just wonderful. I did it once, like in 2019 or 18 or something. And then, of course, COVID came and all the shows had to be postponed, but they have 3 now. And yeah, maybe it's me just throwing myself out there and just contributing. I love doing something. But as I said, I'm 63. I'm not going to sit in the chair like my dog does, you know, and that's it. So there you go.
So I asked you off air, so now I'm going to ask you publicly.
Yeah.
Are we going to get an autobiography?
Nah, I don't know. People have asked me, don't you want to write a book about your wrestling stories and your wrestling days? Now, obviously, and I don't need to tell you or anybody else out there, I'm not going to insult your intelligence. Um, there are many things you cannot talk about. Like, for example, Bret Hart is a great, great drawer and painter. And on the bus after a show or from one city to the next, he would draw wonderful things, but he always made sure he would collect them again because none of these could make their way out ever. Um, that would have kind of damaged his reputation as the wholesome wrestler, and stuff like that. And of course, things happen, and I would not talk about these things because um, I don't even know what kind of reason to give. If there are things that happen in a sort of confidential space, it's not for me to talk about that. Even if those are harmless things, they might be misconstrued by other people. So no, but I'm thinking about possibly writing something because, as I told you off air, my family are now completely gone. My dad died when he was 53. My brother died when he was 55. My mum died 2 years ago when she was 91. So I'm kind of all alone in the world, if you will. And maybe that spurred a wish of writing an autobiography. I might just write it for myself and not put it out. I don't know.
Oh, I think it'd be really rude, and you would be doing a disjustice to everybody if you didn't publish it. So just a little nudge there, like Carsten, crack on, come on, get your book done, let us read it.
I don't know. I'm not the most self-confident person in the world. I was brought up that way. Casting, you're doing things wrong here, you're doing things wrong there. Um, I don't know if people would be interested. I mean, I wouldn't want to force stuff on people. That's embarrassing. That's
No, I think you should
embarrassing.
do it. I think you should do it. I think you should do a book, just a little autobiography, just a little one.
Well, I wrote 2 pages and I made a few notes, and it's called Just a Life. That's the working title.
Oh, I
Um,
like that.
let's see. Let's see.
Mm,
I just started putting a few more of my own songs that I wrote and played like quite a few years ago, almost 10 years ago, on Facebook. Not because I think I'm great, but it's what I love doing. So I basically place the links on Facebook, and it's part of my life. And uh,
exactly.
I just
There's nothing
and
wrong
then
with
I
that.
do force it on people. Yes, so I'm contradicting myself. Bloody
But
hell.
well, you're not forcing it on people because people don't have to listen and they don't have to watch. Everybody's got free will, right?
That's true. That's right.
So before we because we're cracking on to 55 minutes now, I can't believe how quick this has gone.
No, me neither.
So I'm going to be, let's just try this because this is going to be really difficult with everything that you've seen in the wrestling world. Like this is probably going to be really hard. Um, two examples of the best matches you have ever seen. This is what I mean. It's going to be really hard because I'm sure you've seen so many, right?
Yeah, one was definitely the Hell in a Cell Undertaker versus Triple H with Shawn Michaels as guest ring announcer. I sat at ringside, and um, uh, it was seriously. I watched this match, and the whole mood, the whole atmosphere was so unbelievable that it was like in slow motion. You know, it really was. The whole match went by as if it was in slow motion. This is definitely one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. And I would also say, to take one of the old matches, you know what? Um, I'll take one from the much maligned WrestleMania 11 because that was the first time I actually sat at ringside doing commentary. That was in Stamford. Um, and it was the last match. Um, Lawrence Taylor, a football player who had just finished his career, versus Bam Bam Bigelow with Luna Vachon. Um, that is one of the greatest matches to me because uh, LT was really good, but to me, Bam Bam Bigelow, whom I loved. I mean, a lot of people said, "Oh, what a stupid idiot." I loved him. We got on like a house on fire. To me, he was the greatest big man to ever step into the ring. He was unbelievable for his size, and the girth and stuff. He was really the movable object. And then, of course, there was Luna, and I loved her to death. And I'll give you another one. Strangely enough, Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior, title for title. WrestleMania 6, was it? Um, it was so slow, but it had an unbelievable atmosphere, just like The Rock versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18, passing of the torch. That was another one which was in that direction. And of course, I've missed many, many, many. And can I say this? I have to say this about Euro wrestling. Um, Now, I was never really allowed to watch Euro wrestling in the arenas because WWE didn't want me to for a long time. And then one day, quite a few years ago, I said, "Oh, WXW is in town." The promotion that also works with NXT, and I'd like to go. Is that all right? And they said, "Well, yeah, sure. You're person too. You can go there, but don't work with them, whatever they do." And I went there. And then after I started working for Euro Wrestling, there are so many wonderful matches. If you put them into a WWE or AEW setting or something, like an arena with the build up with the television cameras and stuff, you can take an indie show and people would be out of their seats. They would say, "What the bloody hell have we just seen there?" And my last show was for German wrestling promotion, GWP, and we had quite a few English people. We had all the four members of uh, what are they called? Close best friends. Um, and what they did was, of course, a demonstration of what you do in the ring. But that was just so unbelievable. Put that in an AWE show, put it in a WWE show, and people are going to say, "Well, more of that." And that goes for all the matches. Not all the matches are great. They aren't. All the matches aren't great with WWE or AEW either. But um, indie wrestling, European wrestling, is so underrated by so many people. Um, go to the shows, let yourself in for an unbelievable evening of 3 hours or 2.5 hours, whatever, you know. And I watched Aaron. I have to get back to Aaron Sharp and Zach Zodiac. Both of them I saw. You English do something that a lot of Germans don't do. Maybe you train harder, maybe you work on your physique harder. I don't know what it is, but um, these matches that these two guys did was so unbloody believable. Oh, they were both against Hector Invictus, one of our best, and I was just sitting there. I was doing commentary, and I was like, "Oh my God, what am I seeing here? I've died and gone to heaven." So please, whoever you are out there, if you haven't watched wrestling yet, go to an indie show. People put their everything into it. I can tell you that. They put everything into it. They work night and day. They try to secure arenas. They try to secure security. They try to secure wrestlers. They try to give you the best show possible. Please go and support them. And it's certainly worth your while.
I would agree with that, to be fair. I really would. I mean, I'm slightly biased, but LWP, like the shows are phenomenal. You are going to have to come to the UK and come and join us.
As I well as I tell my girlfriend, the dog has to die first. Before that, we can't travel. An author once
Let's
said,
not do anything too hasty.
No, no. I tell you what, an author once said, I was confronted with that. I didn't know about that quote. He said, "Life begins when the kids are out of the house and the dog is dead," and that's what it is. I've had my Rosie, my Dalmatian, for 11 years now. She's going on 15, and she's got a few back problems and stuff, so we can't leave her alone, and I'm not going to. So holidays have to wait until she is no more, but it will happen the moment it has to happen, not a second earlier.
And then you can come and join us for an
Certainly will.
LWP show.
Certainly will. What do you think? Of course.
Can't wait. Carsten, my lovely, thank you so, so much for joining me tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Gemma. Sorry for being such a talking head, but I just love talking, you
It's
know.
good to
And
talk, right?
it's very hard stopping me. But it was just wonderful. A big hello to everybody who's watching, to all the the LWP people, and everybody else out there. I hope we can do this again. I would love to.
Definitely. Oh, we can do it. We can do it live together in the UK.
Good idea. It won't take that long, though.
Well, I mean, your poor dog. I mean, let's not get back
Listen,
onto the poor dog. She's
listen, she's
listening.
listen, she's no, she's just lying there. Listen, she's going on 15. She's had a
Mm,
fulfilled life despite epilepsy, despite having people who treated her badly for the first 3 years of her life, hit her, left her alone and stuff, and she stuck it out. So if she reaches the ripe old age of 15, she's definitely one of the world's oldest Dalmatians ever. And then that's what it is. End of story.
Well,
We still have three cats, though they can just continue to
they
live.
can fend for themselves for a few days while you come to the UK. That's fine.
Oh, sure, I know.
Carsten, thank you so, so much. And for everybody that's joined us tonight, thank you so much. It's an absolute honour to have you all with us week in, week out. The next show for LWP is coming up, the Bash at the Dunes Part 2 on Oh, here we go. Testing my memory. Let's just wait for it to come across the bottom quickly as you like. Can't remember the date. That's rubbish, isn't it?
Well, they're explicit language. I see that. We
I know,
didn't have all that much.
29th of May. Doors open at 4:30 p.m. Tickets can be purchased from the Dunes. We hope to see you all there. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.